Hey everyone, so I am here with Graham Elwood, host of the Political Vigilante on YouTube, and he's here with me to talk shit about US politics, and we are here to solve all the world's problems. So, Graham, thanks for coming on the show.
Mike, thanks for having me, man.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your show? I know a lot of people know you from the Jimmy Dore show, but you also have your own show, which is great, and you post pretty frequently as well. So, tell us about your show.
Yeah, so I started the Political Vigilante on January 2nd of this year. I was a guest on, I've known Jimmy Dore for years. Like, we were both comedians in Chicago many years ago. And I was on the Jimmy Dore show like late November last year. And I just went over to his house thinking we were just going to do sort of his podcast or whatever. And all of a sudden I'm in his studio and I'm like, wow. And he's telling me all of his hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And I went, and he was telling me all about this, and we started talking more because after the election, was like, I want to get more involved politically. And he said, he encouraged me. He said, Graham, because I lost my house because of policies that Obama passed, a man I voted for twice. And he was like, Graham, people are hungry for you. And I did that thing I think a lot of us sort of content creators or whatever you want to call us of like, well, I don't have the money for a big studio, or I need it to be perfect. And he said, just start talking,
Yeah.
And so I just sat at my kitchen table and started talking. And then I did that for about a month. And then I invested in these slightly nicer lights. And that's a photo of Batman. That's where I come up with the term political vigilante. And I put a little blue light on it. So I just got inspired by what he was doing, and then I started seeing like your show and Kyle Kalinske and Sane Progressive and watching TYT and just sort of seeing that, oh wow, there's this whole community of independent media folks and progressives online, and I loved it. I like it. It's you watch the corporate media, as you know, and it's so full of shit that you know and I watched, these shows, and I'm like, even if I don't agree with everybody, I know they're not bullshitting me,
Yeah.
you know, and that's the thing. And Jimmy said this to me, and I'm sure you know it as well. Like, people respond to authenticity on YouTube, just like, so my show's real simple right now. It's just me like going over an article or a topic and sort of giving my opinion and my take on it. But in 10 months, I went from 164 subscribers to over 5,000.
That's awesome. Congrats, by the way, because I know you just passed that landmark too.
Which is really awesome. And I did it, and I have a little Patreon community, and we've got bonus content. And I love being on Jimmy Dore's show. I love being on Aggressive Progressive. And in fact, I'm going to go be on his show tonight at Flappers. And I've met amazing people, Ron Placone, I didn't know. And some of the people over at TYT and even people I haven't met in person, but just watching what they're doing, like Jordan Cheriton and stuff like that is just, it's inspirational, because I'm sure you know this. You watch the news today and you can kind of go, oh, we're done. It's over. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that's been bugging me about the mainstream media is the so-called liberal channel, which is supposed to be for us, for liberals, MSNBC. There's a blackout on net neutrality, and the one time that they covered net neutrality completely botched the coverage. So this is why I think that people like Jimmy Dore, they always tell people like you who are thinking about getting into the game and, you kind of are wavering back and forth. The more people who are doing this, I think the better off we'll all be, because we're not in this, for any other reason than to get the news out there and to inform people about things that the mainstream media doesn't talk about. But I mean, with all of us, we don't have hundreds of writers. We don't have people to plan what we talk about. And all of us can't cover everything. So I always tell people, if you are asking why I didn't cover topics X, Y, and Z, we've got a lot. Join us and do your own news show. It literally just takes a webcam or even a phone now. So yeah, I think it's great, and your show it's fantastic. I like your commentary. You have something that I think is that that resonates with all of us basically, and I think that's why you're doing so well and you're so successful in your show recently.
well, thanks, man. It's so amazing. And I've been in podcasting for a while. I did a documentary about it called Earbuds, and I helped create the Los Angeles podcast community, podcast festival. And we created a we created a festival and a community. And that's the thing that I saw with this is there's a progressive like community. There's this starvation for the truth and somebody that's not bullshitting me, that isn't. So it's really, I really dig that. And I'm sure this happens with you as well. Like I've learned as much from the audience as I've taught them, you know, like they've, oh, Graham, do you know about this? No, I didn't. And you should watch this. And I've learned about a lot of great independent news outlets like the Real News out of Baltimore, and just really cool, and learning about people like Nina Turner and Tulsi Gabbard, and like really helping. And what I really want to do is get people mainly on the left who are neoliberals and don't realize it.
Yep. You know, or apologists for the establishment.
To wake up.
Yeah.
And go, you got to see what's going on. And they're like, Trump and the Republicans are evil. Yes, they are. Yes. And, you know, you can't say that just they're bad and the Democrats are okay. You just can't say that. I just was talking about Glenn Greenwald on The Intercept posted the 4 viral lies that were trying to discredit what Donna Brazile came out to say.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's crazy when you look at the apparatus in place to just immediately go, oh, Donna Brazile's crazy. She's not. Really? She ran the DNC. She ran Al Gore's campaign in 2000, and she's just been a dumb wingnut for all these years? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, and she gains nothing from coming out with all of this. All of her friends are Hillary Clinton loyalists and Democratic Party establishment insiders. She gains nothing for coming out with this information. So to say that she is, you know, is it self-serving because she's trying to sell a book? Of course. But in choosing to actually come out with this, even in her book, I mean, she could talk about other things. Like, she could just focus on Russia like she has been and sell 1 million fucking copies. But to focus on something so big, like how Hillary Clinton took control of the DNC, I mean, I feel compelled to believe her. Does that mean that Donna Brazile is perfect? Of course not. But in actually coming out and saying, yeah, it was rigged, and not only that, it was more rigged than any of you could have ever imagined, she has nothing to gain. It'd be as if I came out against Bernie Sanders unequivocally. I mean, I've been critical of him, but if I basically, you know, if I came out and said Bernie Sanders really is sexist, he told me he hates women personally, it'd be as if I came out and said that, you know, well, actually, probably not even that big, but it's just fucking huge. So to downplay what she's saying, the former DNC interim chair, it blows my mind. And I don't know about you, Graham, but I wanted to ask you, because my initial reaction, of course, was, fuck yes, I feel vindicated. We were right, you were wrong. But then as it kind of sunk in a little bit, and as I thought about it more and more, I just kind of, this wave of depression kind of set in almost, because, yeah, democracy in America was brazenly undermined, and we still have people in the mainstream media trying to downplay it and say it really wasn't that bad. I mean, this is serious. You want to talk about Russia? This is, if you really want to talk about how democracy was subverted in America, we have to go back to the 2016 primaries. And I understand that people don't want to keep relitigating what happened in 2016. But if the party actually is going to have a chance in 2018 and 2020, then the DNC has got to at least gain back a little bit trust. And they've gone backwards. So what was your reaction initially? Because I wanted to know if you felt the same way about that.
Initially, yeah, I think I was similar to you, and like, wow, yeah, fine, wow. I did not predict Donna Brazile coming out to say this. You know, she's such a loyalist. I mean, if she was, and like you say, yeah, I was like, oh, she's just trying to sell books with this, but she could have sold millions of copies of books just doing what Hillary Clinton did, just blaming everybody else and saying it was Russia and Jill Stein did it, you know, or whatever. Like Russia and Putin were arm in arm, blocking the motorcade from campaigning in Wisconsin or whatever. You know.
Which Bill Clinton did that in Massachusetts, actually, with his motorcade, but yeah.
Like, so I did feel like, wow, and I'm just seeing the backlash, and then immediately this machine in place to try to discredit what Brazile said. And then I guess I don't know that I had the full-on depression of you, but I'm going, when are Not the DNC party. I have no hope for them. I have no hope. They're going to get their asses kicked in 2018. A couple of progressives are going to sneak through, but they're going to put their corporate Democrats up, and they're going to try this resist anyone but them thing that they've been doing. So when I see the reaction of this, I guess I get a little, not depressed, but I'm sort of somewhat cynical. Like, are any of you going to wake up? Any of you people that were like, Hillary, yeah, still with her, and shut up, you burn bros. Like, are any of you going to listen to this and go, wow, maybe I was wrong? Are any of you capable of doing that? So I don't know. And it's like, to me, I just keep coming back to the same thing. And I think a lot of people are similar. It's just like, well, can we just start a third party? Can we just get this over with? Like, stop having faith. The DNC, as you just said, they keep going backward. They are not getting it. They're like, it's like watching an active alcoholic, just they keep drinking and blaming everybody else. And you're like, stop drinking. That's the problem. No, man, my boss was a dick. No, you showed up drunk 4 times. That's why you got fired. No, man, the cops. No, you were drunk driving. That's why you lost your license. Like, they just keep, they won't get it. So I'm holding out hope that, and this is what somebody said on my, every Sunday I do a super chat Sunday, and someone said that there was an interview, I forget with whom, who said that Bernie's going to announce the beginning of 2018 that he's going to run in 2020 for president as an independent. I don't know if that's, some people have given up hope on Bernie. He sold us out or whatever. And I understand where that frustration comes from, but he's still the most popular politician in America and still could sway a lot of people. And if he just said, I'm starting a third party, Nina's coming with me, Tulsi Gabbard's coming, whatever, like, we're doing this, money would pour in, and it could be a real thing.
Yeah. And I feel that frustration as well. So I wanted to talk big picture with you kind of for a second about coverage, because since you're kind of new to podcasting or new to your channel, what do you say to the neoliberal wing of the party who tends to criticize people like us because we focus too much on Democrats? Because I've always kind of had this idea that we really have to dedicate 50-50. 50% of our time to attacking Donald Trump and the Republicans, and another 50% of our time to attacking the DNC and Democrats. Now, that's not to perpetuate this false equivalency and say that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are equal, because yes, Republicans are batshit fucking insane. I don't think any of us progressives are willing to deny that, but at the same time, if the Democratic Party doesn't change, and if we don't have a real, huge, viable third-party alternative, then Republicans are going to continue to win. So what do you say to that, and in terms of covering Democrats and Republicans?
I think what I say to that is, I say several things to that. First of all, the accusation, I'm sure you said you've heard this, is so when we're critical of the DNC, it's like, oh, what are you, some Trump sympathizer or whatever? Yeah. Like, I blame the Democrats for Trump.
Yeah, absolutely.
When people say that, I go blaming Jill Stein and Gary Johnson is like blaming World War II on Belgium. Like, it's insane to me. And I say this to people that watch and follow me. I say, stick to the facts. Yeah. I go, and I quote really smart, friends of mine, like my friend John Updike that runs Open Primaries. And he's a progressive and he's an independent, but he has been battling the two-party system for forever. And he said to me right after the election, I was really mad, and this country's racist and everything, and not to deny the racism in this country, but he goes, Graham, for 8 years during the Bush era, I heard anyone but Bush, anyone but Bush. That doesn't work anymore. And I was like, you're right. I did that. Anyone but Bush, anyone but Bush. I heard hope and change out of Obama. He got my vote. I'm in. I thought he was going to be this new FDR. It was going to be fantastic. And it wasn't. It was corporations. It's more war. It's bailing out the banks. It's deporting 2 million people. That's the thing. I stick to the facts. When people are like, you honestly tell me that if Hillary would have won, it would be this bad. And I say, it probably wouldn't be this bad because Trump is scary. He is scary. But I point out the facts. Obama took us from 2 wars to 7. He bailed out the banks and helped create 5.2 million foreclosures. I was one of them. The 2 communities he hurt the most, Black and Latino communities. I stick to the facts. Like, he didn't give a shit about the Dakota Access Pipeline. He let that play out. He only made this token gesture in December when he knew Trump would overturn it. Like, he supported torture, and I just say, I can't do it anymore. I can't keep backing these people. And then I say, why don't you get behind Nina Turner? Oh, I don't know. Like, I point them in a direction. I go, here's what I want. I start a lot of them. I say, we probably agree on the same thing. I said, would you like $15 an hour? Would you like university health care? Would you like free college tuition? Would you like to end all these wars? Yeah. Well, here's how you got to do it. Get away from the corporate Democrats. Because in some ways, the Democrats are worse. Because the Republicans are honest. We're greedy, we're racist, I don't give a shit about you. We'll talk about the working class and I'll make sure you keep your guns. That's all they do, but they're pretty upfront about how awful they are. The Democrats, oh man, our drones have rainbow flags on them when we kill civilians and create terror. Like, they're just Goldman Sachs with a rainbow flag. They're just pro-choice Republicans. It's ridiculous. So I quote FDR. FDR gave a speech in 1940 to the Democratic Convention saying, don't go right. Don't go to the center. Stay left. Stay socialist. That's why I'm up for my 3rd term. And what do the Democrats do? They went to the center. They went to the right. Every time they go to the center, then the right gets a little further over here. Yeah. Every time we go, then it just keeps doing that. And that's why the right now is so out there, so right-wing, so crazy. I said this, a good friend of mine, Will Anderson, who's Australian, goes, Graham, the farthest right of the right-wing party in Australia is further left than the Democratic Party in America.
That's crazy.
And that's the problem, is Americans we're so in a bubble. You start showing other countries, when a good friend of mine, smart guy, college educated, goes, Graham, wow, single-payer healthcare is pie in the sky. I go, it's not for 22 countries.
Yeah, I don't get how people can say that.
22 countries have it. Oh, the doctors don't make any money. That's categorically false, and that was paid for by the health industry, the healthcare industry, and their lobby and big pharma. They buy off equally Republicans and Democratic politicians.
Yeah, and basically, one thing that I realized when I started to kind of look at money in politics when I was in grad school is that these corporate interests, including the NRA, who donate overwhelmingly to Republicans, they still do donate to some Democrats every once in a while, not necessarily because they want to push for deregulation, but because in donating to those Democrats, they know maybe they can get them to be quiet and not push for, more regulation at least. So getting them to demobilize as opposed to mobilize, that's still problematic. That's still corruption. So yeah, and you brought up a great point about how Democrats and Republicans continue to move further and further to the right. The Overton window in this country has shifted so far to the right that we don't have a liberal party. We don't have a liberal party. We have 2 right-wing parties. One is an extremist right-wing party, and one is just a conservative party in the Democratic Party. And for the people who doubt that that's true, you have to really dive deep and look at the policies. Even though Obama was someone he was a great speaker, he was really nice. He made me feel rosy, before the election, and I voted for him for the first time ever, when I was old enough.
He's charming. He's highly educated. He represented us in this very classy presidential way. Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah. And then you learn about what he's doing. So for me, the drone wars, that was when I really took a step back and I realized I can't vote for this party, because anytime I see, because I learned about the drone wars through grad school, again, another thing where I went through and I tried to figure out the actual percentage of civilian deaths versus militant deaths. And it blew my mind, and I thought, this is my fault. My vote is condoning this, and I voted for him twice as well. So I felt guilty myself. So I thought, well, Hillary Clinton, she's already more openly militaristic than Barack Obama. She was even more militaristic in some ways than Donald Trump on the campaign trail. So I thought, there is no way I can vote for this again, because I feel like the blood is on my hands. My tax dollars, like it or not, are funding these drone strikes that are killing people. So I couldn't vote for that. I couldn't condone, a candidate that would do the same thing when I voted for Obama, predominantly because that was an anti-Iraq war vote. Like, I wanted him to get us out of the Iraq war. We're still there.
Oh, and we went from 2 wars to 7.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he took that legislation that was passed after 9/11 by Bush with the Patriot Act that gave the president anything that involves terrorism, I don't need to get congressional approval. And he just ran with that.
Yeah.
He took all the evil stuff that Bush did and just expanded on it.
Yeah. The Bush doctrine then became the Obama doctrine, and it's now the Trump doctrine. I mean, that is an idea that lives on throughout different administrations across parties now. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. I mean, once those rights get eroded, I feel as though you can't really get them back. I mean, we did torture. We violated the 8th Amendment. We're now spying on citizens. Obama didn't stop that. I mean, we're brazenly violating the 4th Amendment. So I feel as though once you kind of open Pandora's box and you get those rights taken away from you and you do something so bad, you have to take a stand and you have to vote against those types of policies, and yes, it is the case that Donald Trump, I believe, is scarier than Hillary Clinton was. I think that we probably would have been better off with Hillary Clinton. I don't believe that her FCC chairman would have attacked net neutrality. We probably still would have been in the Paris Climate Agreement and have the Iran deal. But with that being said, things wouldn't be peachy keen. I saw one meme. I don't know if you saw the same one. There was a bunch of gay people protesting, and they had a sign that said, if Hillary won, we'd be out to brunch right now. That pissed me off to no end, because it's like, that's the fucking problem. Like,
well, that's the thing, too, I cite when I talk about that, when people ask me, yes, it's scary having Trump. And if Hillary is in office, we wouldn't have the things you listed, but we also wouldn't have a women's march. We wouldn't have people going to town hall meetings demanding answers and questions to stuff. We would have drone strike Syria. We would still be deporting people. It wouldn't be as ugly and as aggressive as Trump is. We wouldn't have a travel ban. That was awful, but that kept getting stopped by the courts. Like, we would. The mass shootings would still be happening.
Yeah.
Cops shooting unarmed people would still be happening. That was happening for 8 years under Obama.
Mm-hmm.
There would still be this bullshit drug war. There's no way we would, she would be like, we got to fight the Republicans to keep Obamacare. Okay, yeah, they would try to get rid of Obamacare, but Obamacare is Romney care. It's a Republican healthcare system that could have been a really good healthcare system, but Democrats helped undermine it. So it would be a little bit better with Hillary, but would people be involved? I wouldn't be doing my channel probably.
Yeah, and another thing with Hillary is that I think that for the more egregious things, like foreign policy wise, we probably wouldn't know about it because she's not like Donald Trump. She doesn't, tweet about every single thing that she does. So, and of course, the Supreme Court is another huge thing. Yes, we would have Merrick Garland, who, even though he's a centrist, he is better than Neil Gorsuch. So the Supreme Court is another huge thing. But what we're asking for as progressives, it's not crazy. I mean, the policies that we're asking for, even though we're referred to as fringe, I don't know if you've been called fringe, I've been called fringe and a radical, they're all majoritarian. If you look at public opinion polls, single payer, tuition-free public colleges and universities, legalizing marijuana, raising the minimum wage, these are all supported by most Americans. So why are we fringe to demand that the Democratic Party, which its name is Democrat, therefore you're supposed to represent the people, why are we the fringe ones to demand that they fight for policies that everybody wants them to fight for? It blows my mind, honestly. I don't see why what we're doing is so controversial and offensive to neoliberals.
Oh, well, how are you going to pay for it, Mike? Right? That argument, I go, well, and I go back to the facts. I don't need conspiracies. Mm-hmm. I need the facts speak for themselves.
Right.
People, how do you pay for it? I go, well, they just gave Donald Trump an additional $80 billion for his military budget. I said, you want to know some of the people that approved it? Tim fucking Kaine, Kamala Harris, and Dianne Feinstein. So I said, that's why I can't support the Democratic Party, because $80 billion would give college tuition to anybody going to like community college. Could have done that. It could pay for single payer health care. Like, we outspend the next 7 countries or something like that in the military. It's preposterous. I said, what if we cut that military budget in half? What if we use the military for actual humanitarian things? What if we did the Green New Deal? Oh, we can't do the Green New Deal. No, because if you read Hedges' Death of the Liberal Class, it was the liberal class that allowed, globalization to happen, which just says, hey, the hell with you, worker. And the Green New Deal is like we could put every American to work and building wind turbines and solar panels, redoing the electric grid, which right now is a huge risk. It is a target for cyber terrorism. And we could put this whole country to work. And real progressive, if the Democrats were a progressive populist party, they would never lose. Mm-hmm. They could go into the reddest of red states and go, I'm going to give you a job. I'm closing down the coal mine, and you're going to go to work in the solar plant. And you're going to have good wages and good union jobs because unions built this country. All this stuff could be happening. And then you know what? The right-wing red state person would go, maybe I'll listen to you about climate change now that I'm building wind turbines. Maybe I'll listen to you about equality and diversity. Maybe I'll analyze my racism. I grew up in an all-white community. Maybe I'll do that. But when you tell them you're dumb, you're deplorable, you have white privilege. So I'm third-generation coal miner. My family's poor. There's an Oxycontin epidemic in my town. There's people in jail and dying, and you're telling me I have white privilege?
Yeah.
And then you're wondering why I go, the hell with you. I'm going to vote for the wingnut.
Right. They're demonizing people who don't need to be demonized. And it's not just that they're demonizing potential Democratic Party voters. I mean, we both know firsthand they demonize progressives for arbitrary reasons. If we don't support... who was it? I'm trying to think. Oh, it was Donna Brazile, actually, just a couple of weeks ago, where we were against her being on the Rules Committee. What was the the line against us? Oh, we're racist and sexist, and somebody in the DNC clearly planted an article or a story in BuzzFeed saying, well, progressives, it's not just Donna Brazile. They're trying to ouster other women of color as well. So that's what they do because they don't really have anything. And when it comes down to it, they claim that they're a party that we should vote for because they look out for the disadvantaged groups in the country. Now, if that's all that they did, then I would say you need to do more, but still, that's great. I can get behind that at least, but they don't even do that very well. The one thing they claim to do well, they don't.
It's funny. I was just about to do a video, and there's an article written by Steve Phillips in The Nation, and it's entitled "The Obsession with White Voters Could Cost Democrats the Virginia Governor's Race." And he is a guy that he's a civil rights lawyer, and he wrote the book Brown is the New White, How a Demographic Revolution Has Created a New American Majority. And it's a great article. And it goes into how the Democratic Party, which, as you just pointed out, keeps claiming, oh, we're for people of color, and they're not. Mm-hmm. They're not. I know so many people that were like, no, they like a guy I went to high school was like, man, Obama, when he was on the cover of Time magazine as the first gay president, when he passed gay marriage, which was a fine thing. I was very happy that happened. But he said, yeah, they might as well call him a gay president because he hasn't been a black man. He hasn't helped my community at all. Yeah, he's a black guy. And he was like, this is, and so the Democrats, and what this article in The Nation I just went with is all about. This guy's going, the Democrats keep just saying, oh, we got the black vote lined up. And this was the lowest black turnout in 20 years, this last presidential election.
Well, because... go ahead. Yeah, you don't ever hear Democrats even say the words Black Lives Matter unless it's an election season, which is odd to me because police brutality against people of color, this isn't a new phenomenon. This has been going on for decades and decades and decades that we are actually beginning to know about because of, well, anyways, we learned about it more so like before I was born because media changed. It wasn't just radio, it was pictures and images and whatnot. But I mean, this is not a new phenomenon. People are mobilizing and that's what makes it seem new. But this has been going on forever. Why haven't they addressed it when they had a majority? They had a supermajority. Why didn't they address it? And when it comes to Obama, being the first gay president, it was the Supreme Court that did, in fact, outlaw bans on marriage equality. Obama had nothing to do with that. And even though, to his credit, he was the first sitting president to ever endorse marriage equality, he didn't do that until the polls flipped. Hillary Clinton was one of the last people in the Democratic Party to endorse marriage equality. So when her daughter was getting married, Chelsea, she still thought that gays shouldn't have that same right. So I'm saying, with friends like these, who needs enemies? Because they are not willing to really take a strong stance in favor of these groups. Now, are they better than Republicans? Of course that's the case. But if you're going to be an ally and you're going to basically run on being an ally to marginalized minorities, then you better damn well fucking be the best ally ever. But they're not. And it's so frustrating because all we see on any issue for Democrats is milquetoast liberals. That's all that they can be. It's this tepid, well, we're standing up for the working class, we're standing up for the marginalized minority, we're standing up for women of color, but you don't really talk about them and claim to be an advocate for them unless it's an election season. But when the elections go away and the media is not paying attention to you as much, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Nothing.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
They just, it's all lip service and it's all platitudes with that party. And they all just, hashtag resist, and they're not really doing it. No. They're not really voting for it. I mean, we saw it in California. We were trying to get single payer healthcare here in California, and Democrats voted it down. Anthony Rendon got rid of it. I mean, like and Governor Brown, who was like, oh, how are we going to pay for this? Really? We have the 6th largest economy in the world. We can't. Yeah. Give me a break.
And Anthony Rendon is a supporter of single payer. I mean, when he shot it down and shelved single payer in California, his reasoning, in his reasoning, he states that he supports single payer. It's like, you just fucking shelved it though, buddy. I don't think you could claim to support single payer if you shelved it and you're not even allowing anyone to debate it. I mean, it blows my mind. So yeah, going back to what you said about needing a third party, absolutely. I think that for me, this is kind of the way that I see it. I think 2020 is going to tell us a lot. I think Bernie Sanders, if he does run it, probably will be as a Democrat. And if he wins, and if he becomes president, let's say hypothetically speaking, then that can actually impact a lot. He does get to take over the DNC. He gets to purge the DNC himself, and even though they'll still vote to be for who's going to be the DNC chair, if you win the nomination, like Hillary Clinton did, before she won, but you do get to take over the DNC. So you could kind of see a pretty significant change in his direction. But if he doesn't become the party nominee, I think that 2020, we're going to have to figure something out. It's going to have to be a third party. And we see Draft Bernie, great movement. We see unions basically trying to form their own party. And a lot of people will say, yes, we live in a two-party system. It's never going to happen. But even though we live in a two-party system, we don't live in a same two-party system. So a new party can replace one of those two parties. Is that going to happen overnight? Of course not. It's going to take decades. But all we need, at least, in the short term, is to take a big enough chunk away from Democrats to scare the shit out of them. Are we going to lose elections potentially with that strategy in the coming years? Perhaps, but we're already losing because nobody's inspired by the Democrats. So we've got to do something drastic, and we've got to act quickly because I feel as though time is running out. When you look at these issues like climate change and income and wealth inequality in this country, there's a lot of bubbles that are going to pop soon, and we're getting to this point where we can't just have incrementalism. We can't have another Hillary Clinton be the nominee in 2020. We've got to have someone that's going to get in there and do a lot, and do a lot fast. It's got to be a new deal.
Yeah, and I think that's it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like people might just be so fed up after what'll probably happen in 2018 is more Republican victories, and a couple of progressives will sneak through, and people will go, all right, this is the key. And I think if the 2020, if the Democrats start leaning towards some big corporate nomination or Chelsea's running or just some ridiculous thing like that, I think people are going to go, fuck this. And they're going to just go, nope. And it's going to be a big enough groundswell to change it. At least that's my hope. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive. I mean, after Trump winning, it's kind of like all bets are off, man. A lot of conventional wisdom, you got to kind of chuck it out the window and go, anything could sort of happen here. And anything could happen badly, or anything could, like, amazing change for the better could happen.
Yeah, it's tough to say because on one hand, Donald Trump is very unpopular. very ineffective. He's a terrible president. I don't think he's worse than George W. Bush yet, but he's still a very bad president. So that's yeah.
Every morning he wakes up and goes, "How can I be worse than W?" But
yeah, and that's one side of the coin. But on the other hand, after you lose to Donald Trump, the Democratic Party, they haven't taken away any lessons. They haven't been introspective. I don't understand how you can lose to someone like Donald Trump and not just take a look in the mirror and say, "Whoa, what is wrong with me?" And they haven't done that. They haven't been introspective. So yes, Donald Trump sucks, but on the other hand, Democrats, they haven't gone in the right direction. They haven't embraced progressives. They haven't tried to do anything to heal the divide on the left and the center left. Because regardless, if a lot of the Hillary supporters, they're neoliberal, they're centrist. I mean, we still do, as much as we don't want to admit it, progressives and neoliberals, we do form a political coalition that is necessary to defeat Republicans. And at this point, we hate each other so much for good reason. Well, we have a good reason. They don't, but I'm biased. That I don't know how we can ever, defeat Republicans again. So I don't know. It's like we're watching a movie that's really exciting, but it's not a movie. It's real life,
Yeah, it's interesting, man. You bring up all great points, and I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to come up with any sort of prediction that feels like it's going to stick. I don't know. I don't know. It's really, there's so many things. Some people feel like everyone on the left is so fractionalized, as you said, and not getting along. I think what needs to happen is you need somebody to either form a third party, or the Green and the Libertarians join forces, or some big billionaire gets behind the Green Party or something like that, or somebody, I don't know, like Mark Cuban, or I'm just pulling a name out of the air, but something like that just goes, boom, here's a bunch of money, and I'm pulling in all these heavy hitters, and I've got money for Nina and Bernie or whomever, and we're going to go. And it might be something like that, because there was this little party called the Republican Party, and they were too small for the Federalists. And this guy named Abraham Lincoln, with his crazy ideas, came in, and the Federalist Party, I believe, went out of business. Yeah. So anything can happen, man.
Yeah, it's all up in the air, and that's why we are here to kind of just observe what's happening and, give our take on it, because there's a lot happening. It's news stories are going by so fast, at the speed of light, and trying to analyze, what's happening. It's like trying to hit a moving target, because there's so many different moving pieces that it's really difficult. The situation is complicated, which is why we need more and more people to create YouTube channels. Even if you don't have a studio or a set, just turn on your camera and you're now a commentator, because we all have opinions and ideas. I'm not an expert. There's nothing that makes my opinion better than anyone else's, because I have people who watch me. We all have insight, which is why I think that the more people doing this, the better. So before we leave, can you tell us where to find you on Twitter and YouTube, and if you have a website or anything like that?
Yeah, so if you go to GrahamElwood.com, you can get access to all my social media, which is at Graham Elwood. It's GrahamElwood. So go to GrahamElwood.com. It links you to all my social media. It gets you to Political Vigilante, which is my YouTube show, and my podcast, and my other podcasts, and the movies I've directed, and tour dates, and all of that. So just go to GrahamElwood.com. And then like and subscribe to my YouTube channel.
The Political Vigilante.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Graham, for being with us.
Thanks, Mike.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.